Hello, everybody. My name is Ruby Orozco Santos. I'll be sharing a lesson with you from La Semilla Food Center's Edible Education Program that you can find in the activity book um, on page 83. And this lesson is really exciting because it has to do with corn, which is one of my favorite plants, and I'm really excited to talk about corn with you a little bit today and go over this lesson. I'll go over it in a little bit more detail than what you can find in the activity book, so this can serve to complement that lesson itself with some extra information and sort of some of the inspiration that went behind this lesson. You know, my 7-year-old actually helped me to develop the lesson and the activity. So I'm really excited to share this with you. If you're a teacher and you're going to be offering this lesson to your students, I would invite you to have a conversation ahead of time with them on the topic of corn. There's so much. There's a fun activity that I've done with groups where you set a timer for like a minute or even 2 minutes, and then just make a list of all the things we know we could make with corn. And it could be just like foods, all of the possible foods that we know we can make with corn. And it's a really fun activity, and then people can share and we can see what we already know. And there's also a good opportunity to have a conversation about if students have ever seen a corn plant in a garden or a farm, and if their families use any corn in any other way other than using the kernels for food. There are so many uses for corn. Another activity that I've done that can be fun is not only a list of how corn is used for food, but again, setting a timer and doing a list of what are all the uses for the different parts of the corn plant. And that one I've done with community groups, and it's been very interesting to see what people know, especially elders and people who have had more experience with the plant. It's really great to hear just how different parts of the plant are used. So there is, different ways to get into the conversation if you're able to ahead of time before the students complete the lesson. So as you may know, the activities in this book are designed to be self-directed by the students, and so we try to create them in a way that they can follow along. And so the very first part of it is called Get Ready to Explore Corn. Now, before I start there, I should say that the three main learning objectives in this lesson are that by the end, after spending time on these few pages, that students will know one way at least that corn is good for our bodies, that they will be able to describe what is ephemeral art, and that they will have participated in creating ephemeral seed art with the seeds that are provided with this lesson, popcorn seeds. And so at the very beginning of the lesson, we have the Get Ready to Explore Corn section. And that section sets the ground rules and some safety information, always, prioritizing safety, and especially in this case, the activity, the snack will be popcorn. It might be very hot when it's freshly made, and so, we need to be careful with hot things and blow on it, make sure it's not going to burn our hands or our mouth. Also, a reminder to clean up after ourselves, and always to listen to our bodies and take a break if we need to, and know that we can ask for help if we need help, and to have fun and stay curious. There is a section called Corn and Me, and that's an area where we can capture like a baseline assessment of what people already know about corn. What do young people already know And so either writing or drawing what they know here, that's the invitation in this second half of this page in the introduction. And then we go into the story and uses of corn. Now that's a very big topic, and so here we just truly scratch the surface from this sort of angle of things, because there are so many stories that have to do with corn. So just as sort of an entry point into the topic that we offer here. And so humans have been eating grains for thousands of years, right? First foraging them and then growing them. And corn is the key grain of the Americas, what we know now today as the American continents, North and South America. And it's not only a food for people here in this continent, but a foundational part of cultures all across the continent. There is an ancient Tlatelolca saying that calls corn the sustenance of life. And corn as we know it evolved from a wild grass called teocintle in the region of the Balsas River that we currently know as the state of Guerrero, Mexico. Now, teocintle is a spindly and skinny plant. It has a skinny cob with very few kernels, and people gnawed on it, on the sweet stalk, and also learned how to select and plant the starchiest seeds. And that process of domestication took centuries. There are also a lot of deep stories around that that can be researched and learned from around the story of corn. But so it took centuries, and then once it was established, once corn became not so much a foraged grain, but a grain that humans planted, then we sort of, humans, planted ourselves with it. So corn planting was established, and so once that happened, nomadic cultures became more connected to land, settling and developing complex political, social, and cultural societies. And today there are hundreds of types of corn. Today I'm joined by these beautiful kernels and cobs that my friend and neighbor Mateo Herrera shared with me, and they're really beautiful, as you can see already in this small sample, the beauty and the variety and the colors. Now, corn is good for human bodies. It has a lot of fiber, it has minerals and antioxidants, and it also has B vitamins, which are helpful for our brain, eyes, blood, and corn gives us energy, among other things. Traditional corn varieties, such as these, have even more nutrients than conventional corn. So anytime that we're able to find some, we should definitely have it. So let's talk a little bit more about corn. I want to tell you about a process called nixtamalization, which is an indigenous culinary innovation that cooks dried corn kernels in an alkaline solution. And so with water and something that makes that water alkaline, right? It might be, depending on the region, people adapt and use different things. In a Mexican culture, there are a lot of people use cal or calcium hydroxide. People in other regions might use different kinds of ashes. I've even read that the Olmecs used ground oyster shell to alkalinize their water and cook corn. And what does that do? Well, it makes the corn softer and easier to grind. So that's great, because then we can make very good things like tortillas and tamales. And it also enhances the nutritional quality of the corn, liberating niacin in the corn, which is extremely important. And truly, without nixtamalization, life would not have flourished on this continent. There are some delicious foods that can be made from corn without nixtamalizing, like popcorn, for example, or polenta, um, or grits as well. And those are also very, very tasty. And popcorn is actually a very healthy snack because it has a lot of fiber and it actually has more fiber than whole wheat bread. So as long as we just season it very lightly, you know, with just a little bit of maybe a little bit of salt, um, it's a very healthy snack. Once we start adding, you know, a lot of butter and a lot of salt, then it's less healthy. So let's talk about the activity that accompanies this lesson. This activity is ephemeral art. And ephemeral comes from a Greek word, ephemeros, which means only living a day or short-lived. Something that doesn't last very long is something ephemeral. And ephemeral art pieces are temporary works that occur only once. And they're not meant to be lasting objects that are housed in the long term in museums or galleries. They usually don't even take place inside places like that. And ephemeral art can include sculpture, visual art, and performance art. Some people say that ephemeral art began in the 1960s. However, traditional cultures around the world have been practicing ephemeral art for centuries. The ancient people of what is currently Mexico, known as the Mexica, created edible sculptures from puffed amaranth seeds that were displayed during festivals and then eaten. And another example of ephemeral art is the art of sand mandalas, part of Tibetan culture. Here in the Paso del Norte region, the city of El Paso's Chalk the Block Festival offers us an opportunity to view and even participate in ephemeral art, where there's sidewalk art and sidewalk art competition between amateurs and professionals. Another example of ephemeral art is the work of Andres Amador, who prints sand patterns on beaches. And so often ephemeral art is made of natural elements, such as leaves, branches, and stones. And sometimes the artist remains anonymous, creating the work somewhere in nature where others might stumble upon it. If you've ever been on a hike out in the desert, maybe you found a stack of stones that somebody created, and that's ephemeral art. Young people are experts at ephemeral art, right? Young people might draw on the sand with sticks, or make mud pies, make sand castles, make a snowman. All of those are examples of ephemeral art. And so in this activity, the invitation is to use the popcorn seeds that come with this lesson to create ephemeral art. And I also include in this lesson, we also include a couple of links to some of those examples of ephemeral art that students, children, and anyone can enjoy along with this lesson. And so the activity for the ephemeral art, using the seeds, you know, sometimes we make seed art where we glue seeds to a piece of paper. In this case, we won't glue it. So we'll use these traditional Mexican designs and then put our seeds on top of them to create a beautiful pattern. And if people have other types of seeds, maybe other different colored corn kernels at home, or even other kinds of seeds, you can use them to create an even more colorful piece. And so my son helped me to, you know, figure out how this activity might work, and he had a lot of fun doing it. So I hope that you do too. You know, part of this invitation as well is a very relaxing, meditative sort of practice So I like to invite students to maybe play a little bit of music while they work, um, and relax, you know. And then once the piece is completed, it's ephemeral, so we know it's not going to last forever. We can invite our family to check it out, maybe take a picture of it, and then it's time to let it go, like the sand mandalas, right? And then after that, we can wash the seeds, make sure they're nice and dry before you use them in the recipe. There's a simple recipe that comes with this lesson. It's a popcorn recipe using a microwave and a paper bag. There are also instructions for stovetop if folks don't have a microwave, and just a reminder to be very careful when handling heat. And if stovetop is the way to go, be sure that there's support from a grown-up that can help manage the stove. In the closing activity of this lesson, we asked 3 questions. Name one way corn is good for our bodies. What is ephemeral art? And what foods do we have? Because indigenous people developed the process of mixed stemmelization. And with those questions, we conclude the lesson. I would invite you as teachers and families and students to explore the topic of corn a lot more from as many angles as you can. Corn is such a vast topic that can be approached from any subject. And I would recommend starting by an interview activity where younger people might interview someone in their family who knows about corn. They might know a lot about preparing it. They might know a lot about growing it. And, ask them about it. Write it down, or maybe make some art with that interview, or maybe even make a theater production, puppet theater, or some other creative way to express what you learn from the people in your family and your communities. I thank you so much for spending a little bit of time with me talking about corn, and I really hope that you enjoy the lesson and that you enjoy the popcorn while you check out some videos on ephemeral art.